Good evening, everyone. Artemis rolls its way back to the pad, but concerns, of course, remain. Rocket Lab won a record contract with the War Department today. Momentous got a NASA contract for a solar sail demo. A private firm wants to bag an asteroid. We're bagging an asteroid. Um, Starlink rival SES is selling space bonds as a way of funding things. SpaceX acquires Hexagon Masterworks. It's actually a good acquisition. Golden Dome budget has gone up to 185 billion after adding an additional 10 billion for specifically space capabilities. We'll be talking about that. Space Force made some new acquisitions as well. Canada has invested 200 million to a new spaceport in Nova Scotia. And Mantis Space leaves stealth mode with a $10 million seed round. All that, plus our guest, Dr. Daniel Tompkinsl. From the news desk at the Center of Space Commerce and Finance, my name is Thomas Andrew Olson, and this is The Unknown Quantity. As you know, this podcast is brought to you by the Center for Space Commerce and Finance. What do we do? We champion and strengthen emerging space startups and space-adjacent enterprises worldwide. Our pitch events and world-class boot camps fortify startups to be better investor-ready. Now, a lot of our work, especially this podcast, is supported by our listeners and fans like you. Remember, the Center is a 501c3 nonprofit, so just go to our website, cscf.space/support, and click that donate button and drop something in the tip jar. In addition, if you like to support the show, you like this show, tell your friends, bring them on down. The more subscribers, the merrier. And thank you for your support. Now, my oldest space friend, Michael Lane, who just finished hosing down his garden because the burning bush got out of control, is here with me. Michael, come on in, man.
I think that's one of the funniest intros you've ever had. I read it earlier and I started cracking
And you
up.
just didn't believe me, did you?
And I was like, damn, I still think that's pretty funny. So, great. All right, great. Hi, how's things?
Hey.
What's going on?
I don't know. I'm doing okay. Good things. There's nothing wafting through the screen, so I don't think I've had a shower in about 5 days. So, hey, it's been one of those weeks.
Right.
Sometimes hygiene takes second place. You just don't care. You look good in the screen. That's all you need.
You got other things going on, man. You got other things.
That's right. You're here in the Florida paradise.
Right.
So,
right.
How you doing, man? What's going on?
I'm good. You are not going to be here next week, right?
I'm not going to be here Monday.
Let our beloved audience know.
Right, because that's the first day of SAT show. And there's a whole lot going on the first day and the second day and the third day, but it's pretty much all over by the shouting by Thursday. So I'll definitely be here Thursday and give you a blow by blow from the whole week.
Cool. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So it'll be a rerun on Sunday.
Okay. That sounds good.
Yeah.
We have a lot of great ones to pick from. So
we do.
We're going on number 100 soon. So that's
100. Isn't that amazing?
No, that's just amazing to me.
That kind of went by pretty fast, I think.
It did.
Yeah.
Because it was a year ago early this month, that we started doing the 2 shows a week. Well, here it is 52 weeks later.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm excited about it. All right. We got a bunch to cover this evening. Where do you want to start?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with I want to say hi to Veronica Ann. She's here on time for once. Hi, young lady. Thank you so much for coming. And everyone else who's coming by sooner or later. I know.
I am having technical difficulty. I do not see the chat. That is curious.
Really? Okay. Well, we'll just pass that along.
Yeah. If
Anyway,
there's anything interesting in there, let me know. But I cannot see the
absolutely. There's a okay. Joe Luttrell's here. Yeah,
chat. Hey, Joe.
and he will
Veronica.
be at SAT Show, so I will be seeing Joe Luttrell at SAT Show.
Terrific.
So March 25th. Yeah, absolutely. That's that Wednesday. That's when there's a lot of things going on. And we'll start with the quick one. I say to start with the quick one, but it really isn't quick. Artemis is rolling out to the pad. Our first quick story of the night, ladies and gentlemen. Artemis is rolling out to the pad. I've got a reporter in the street there, and he's watching paint dry as well while he's witnessing this, and the grass is growing underneath him. But but he's an intrepid reporter. Thanks a lot for the videos.
Sure. 12 riveting hours to roll that thing out. It's starting just about now for you, right? 8 p.m.
Yep. That's happening right now.
So you could get in your car, drive over, listen to us, don't turn us off. Listen to us while and we would take one of those hours and consume one of those hours with you.
It would take me more than an hour to get there from here. It takes about 2. So that wouldn't help much. But one of these days we'll have to do something like that. We'll have to do some special feature, something. Maybe we'll plan it now for when the actual landing happens. And do a live feed, from the launch site. I think we got some press credentials now. We should be able to do that. Let's work on that. The only other thing about this that the people, the doom scrollers, can't help, of course. And the New York Post was no different today. They had a little thing they plugged in real quick. It says, well, it's flirting with disaster. A lot of rocket scientists on staff of the New York Post, and so we always, listen to what they say. I mean, well, any space launch with humans in it is flirting with disaster, and it has been for 60 years. So, okay, yeah. What's news about this?
Right. Yeah.
But my point was, they're still doing it.
Yep. Fingers crossed. That's all. All we can do on the sides, on the sidelines, is just cross our fingers for the April 1st launch date.
Well,
right.
Of course, knowing these guys, it's April 1st, first launch window.
Right.
And then they'll go, fooled you. It's going to be April 3rd, actually.
Just kidding. Yeah.
So let's get into something more interesting. Space and money. How about that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Rocket Lab has done it again. They just picked up a huge contract, I guess, with the War Department.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Formerly the Department of Defense.
Right.
Depends on who you ask.
Yes, the Department of War is doing stuff over the Gulf of America. Well,
right. Depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
All right, so let's dig into that for a second. So Rocket Lab, publicly traded company, good for them. That's a giant contract. I don't know if it was they've got a backlog of $2 billion. So good on them. This one contract is almost 10% of their backlog.
Right. And just this one, this little $190 million one, that's over 4 years, and it covers 20 test flights of their hypersonic accelerator suborbital test electron rocket.
Yeah.
So that's 5 per year.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, it's 5 per year, but if anybody's counting, it's $9.5 million per flight. That was the number that I was counting.
Yep.
I'm like, all right, what 700 kilos? All right, 700 kilos for $9.5 million. Is that really right? That seemed a little strange to me, but I wasn't sure if we were seeing if this was just the particular cargo that they had, or if that was their. Because I wasn't sure. I thought their flight capacity was higher.
I thought so too, but it's
Yeah. So this is a suborbital flight, or sorry, not super hypersonic flight test. So that's what they want to see. How fast they can go. They're aiming for above Mach 5.
And they want to see that 20 times. And when they, I guess if they like what they see after 20 times, then I guess that will lead to more contracts to build maybe bigger ones, I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of folks here tonight. Dallas is here. Kevin Russell is here. Hey, man.
Wow. Hey, Kevin.
Mackenzie. I don't know Mackenzie, but I've seen Mackenzie before. Hi. Welcome. Morty's here. Yeah. So Dallas is going to be at the statue too. So yeah.
That's the live chat. I can put that up, but I don't like doing that because we don't know it's going to show up there. So I'm going to take it off.
Yeah, right. Because it was showing up on my screen as an extra one, floating over, like half covering your face. It was weird.
Yeah. We're not
do that today.
I can't see the chat. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Well, I'm glad everybody's here. I wish I could interact with you more.
Okay.
All right. So Rocket Lab, $190 million contract. One thing that we probably should chat about briefly is just how much defense money is moving into the space sector. Somebody posted on LinkedIn, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who. I always try to give credit, but I just can't place who it was. He's like, look, what's happening in the space sector is all neat, but it's all defense money. So the big ideas that you and I are always championing, they're not necessarily getting the paychecks and funding. So space-based solar power, still super limited. Space stations, they're doing fine. Elevators, non-existent. So
we'll keep working on it.
Right. Lunar mining maybe has some traction. But boy, if you were doing anything around defense and total space domain awareness or anything like that, it's a party. It is time to get your wheelbarrows out.
Yeah.
There's a lot
it's raining soup, grab a bucket. That's the Highline would have said. Absolutely. Especially if you're trying to mix AI with it somehow. There you got atoms and electrons. And you're
Well, I want to shout out to Sean because he's talking about that in his article as well. It's a theme that a lot of people are starting to talk about. I wasn't entirely paying attention to it, but now that I see it, I can't unsee it. So it's really a trend. It's really how things are right now.
Absolutely. Okay. Next up, Momentous. Had a momentous day. They were awarded a NASA contract recently to design a solar sail demonstration mission. And they may do a follow-on contract to conduct further study, depending on the first one. But the first one they're making, it measures nearly 18,000 square feet, or 1,652 square meters, or about 1/3 the size of a football field. And so for a flight demo, they have to host the orbital platform. The orbital platform provider will be responsible for the bus and the system integration. And so it's a joint project actually developed by NASA and NOAA for weather monitoring satellites to move closer to the sun. And of course, since this is a press release I'm looking at with forward-looking statements, we don't see a number.
No, we do not.
I was hoping to see a number.
Not releasing that information. Yeah, I always want to see a number. I feel like, look, those folks at Momentous, we've been watching them for a long time. Mostly they're pretty good at what they do. But doesn't this seem a little outside of their lane? They're a space tug company, right?
Yeah.
And they've got the Vigoride bus, orbital transfer vehicle, right? So they've got Vigoride and they've got a couple others, and I'm a fan. I've liked Momentous for a long time since Nagar Faher was there. She convinced me they really had their engineering stuff together, and I want to see that kind of in-space transportation element because it's right now it's pretty lacking.
Mhm.
So I'm like, on one side, great, Momentous, get a contract when you can get a contract, and get NASA and NOAA as your customers. Always love that, but it is outside of their normal scope of things, isn't it?
It's a little bit, but I guess I don't know. I guess they just saw an opportunity and they took it, and I guess they had enough
Yeah.
juice to convince NASA and NOAA to take a shot at them on them. I don't know. It's it's sometimes when these things. Is it who you know? It's I don't know. I want to throw that out there, but hey, I mean, how do you get something like that when you're kind of in this wheelhouse over here, and now you're kind of moving that wheelhouse a little bit, kind of crossing over? It's like my image crossed into you like a Venn diagram. Okay, well, what's going on?
So the guy that we're going to talk about in the next article, Joel Sercel, used to work at Momentous. He was one of their chief engineers. I don't know if chief engineer was his exact title, but when I was paying attention to Momentous, nobody on that team would have known how to deploy an 18,000 square foot solar cell.
Right.
So, I mean, Joel's not there anymore, right? He left years ago. I don't know who their team is, but putting out an 18,000 square foot sail is tricky. And if they're good at it, I kind of want to talk to them because, deploying a really long string is not very different from a really big sail. So interesting. Yeah. I'm excited about this. This could be good news for me.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the next thing, because so interestingly, this guy you just talked about, they have a new private space company has a plan to bag an asteroid. So you want to go out to a small near-Earth asteroid, throw a huge bag around it, and just drag the whole sucker back to a safe gathering point near our planet and gather it, and I guess do whatever you want to with it. It's a test bed for a whole bunch of technologies, also robotic research and development on materials processing and manufacturing. This is Joel Sercel you're talking about.
Yep.
And so obviously the idea is something we've dreamt about, for decades. Instead of building our hardware in the ground and launch propellant up, we can harvest it from raw materials in space and make it there. And you do a lot of savings and just do a lot more stuff. It also occurred to me, not really off topic, but if you can improve on that bag technology, is there some way you could also use that for space junk?
I'm a little skeptical of that, only because that stuff is moving really fast.
Well, you're not standing still with the bag holding it.
Right?
No, you're coming right up along behind it and going, like a.
I'm a little curious how he says there's 250 potential target asteroids with a diameter of up to about 20 meters.
Oh.
That is a big damn rock that they're getting.
Yep, it is.
I don't know what they're getting, right? They're not giving that information away, but a 20 meter rock is not messing around.
And I am guessing you could probably add 3 zeros to that estimate of the number of rocks like that are out there. Those are just the ones that we've spotted and are tracking.
Right. I do also wonder about this potentially located at Earth Sun L2, about 1.5 million kilometers from Earth. I've not paid that much attention to Earth Sun L2. Do you know anything about it? I mean, I know where it is, but that's kind of all I know.
Yeah, it's just, well, it's one of the spots we haven't thought about much. No one thinks about, again, we've talked about this before, no one thinks about the Lagrange points, because that's something we assume we're just kicking that can down the road. But since you came out and started your countdown clock for the lunar elevator, all of a sudden, L1 isn't everybody's focus. And
I hope
so
so.
L2 will be next. So
Yep.
I guess it's like
important distinction. Earth Sun L1 and L2 is not the same as Earth Moon L1 and L2. But yeah, it's cool. I really have not thought about Earth Sun L2 at all. I'm gonna have to look into it a little bit.
Absolutely.
They're working with you guys. Well, you guys meaning Central Florida. Isn't that that's the school that Autry's at, right? So UCF.
UCF, yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's cool. Good on them.
Yeah.
This capture bag looks pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. We all have a few minutes of news, and then we have to move on to our guest. However, here's an interesting thing. I thought I mentioned this as I kind of know these guys a little bit. Starlink rival SES sells space bonds ranked lower than hybrids, and so they claim they're a rival to Starlink now, and they've launched the sale of unusually structured hybrid bonds, which hopes it will help it reclaim an investment grade credit rating. And they want to raise 500 million euros. And investors have placed more than 3 billion bids so far. Okay.
We talked a few weeks ago about debt, and somebody, I forget who it was, but somebody issued a $1 billion bond. Maybe it was AST Mobile. AST Mobile issued a $1 billion bond, and we put that out there like, is this noise or is this a signal? Is debt going to become part of the financing stack in the space sector? Because that was a big move. I said it. I thought it was a big move. And then fast forward a few weeks later, somebody else came out with something. And then fast forward, somebody else got the XM Bank to underwrite a loan. And then now this. I think we've got a signal here. I think debt becomes part of
it's going to become part of it. And I think it's a very simple reason. Hardware is being built and it's being sold to other people. We have hardware manufacturers in the space sector that are selling their stuff to people for actual money. And so generally that changes the equation of how you get money going forward to fund future activity. So this is a natural progression. It is a good signal. And that I think it's, regardless of what happens with SES, if they can crawl out of their junk bond rating, good for them. But that's not the point. The point is this stuff is going on all the time now. And that's a good thing for the sector. That's going to help, double its growth or double its growth rate if that keeps going on.
Well, let's put SES into perspective for folks who don't have that history. Once upon a time, SES was by far the largest satellite owner of any company or nation in the world. They had north of 200 operating satellites. Nobody was even close to them. And these are the old, clunky, expensive, hard to maintain, finicky satellites. And then Planet Lab comes along, and they launch a fleet of Doves basically back to back to back to back when successive launches, and suddenly they surpass. And SES is like, hey, that's not cool. And that was what, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, and they have struggled to update their fleet. They have long-standing government contracts.
I am well acquainted with the co-founder, Candace Johnson. I hope to be seeing her at the conference next week, and I can catch up with her a little bit.
That, if you get her on the show,
that would be amazing. If I can pull that off, I will definitely try to do that. Okay, final thing. There's a lot more, but final thing. We're running a little late. SpaceX acquired some outfit called Hexagon Masterworks. They supply high-pressure composite storage cylinders for North American aerospace uses and hydrogen customers from like ASA and Mitsui. So that was announced last month. It just closed a few days ago.
Can you say fuel tank transfer, fuel storage?
Yep. Right? Particularly hydrogen. So that's the toughest thing to store.
Space doesn't buy companies very often.
No, it does not at all.
So that feels like a tech that they're like, God damn it, what are we going to do now? Oh, let's look at what these folks are doing. Yep.
Yeah. That's
good call. Good
okay.
call.
Okay, so Sean, our producer, is nudging us a little bit. We should
waving frantically. God damn it, get on with the show.
I know he does that. That's his job.
That's his job. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's move on to our guest and learn all about whatever is new in the world of space and space-related agronomy and growing food in the high frontier and a lot of other things. Our guest tonight, he's a returning guest, Dr. Daniel Tompkinsl of Grow Mars. Come on in. Hey, man.
Hey, guys.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well.
Good.
The trees are going to bloom here in DC. I was in DC the last 2 days, and they're getting ready to pop. They did the official announcement where they break open this block of ice with a cherry blossom in it. Pretty dramatic. And then they announced like the official cherry blossom season dates when they're actually going to. So I think it's March 29th to April something is nice. The official kickoff.
You were telling me last week that your kids got out the squirt guns and the snowball fights in the same week. So how's that going?
It was wild weather. Yeah, it was 84 and then 34, and we got an inch of snow in the grass. So it's been a very divergent winter spring.
Right on. Well, let's talk about. Well, give your super fast bio just so we got that checkbox.
Yeah, so I'm an agricultural scientist that came into this really by accident, into the space arena by accident about 10 years ago, looking at some unrealized potential around using bio-derived plastics to really do large-scale agriculture in space, much more than just food, kind of a really big system boundary type of look at what you need to really stay in space.
Cool. Very cool. I've heard it said, and I've used the title myself, "Plant Whisperer in Space." So I think that's I would put that on a business card. That would be my title. All right. So last week you're in DC-ish, but last week in the heart of DC, what did you do? How'd it go? Tell us about that.
I've been part of the Alliance for Space Development. Participate in their main event, which is March Storm, which is a legislative blitz on the Hill where a group of volunteers go around to about 50, 60 congressional and senators' offices, and I've been doing that in person, I think, for about 3 or 4 years, and every year it kind of changes. It's very dynamic. It's nonpartisan. But you have these incredible conversations and you do a bunch of advocacy work. Sometimes the staffer knows nothing about space. Sometimes they're really in the weeds and really passionate about it.
Right.
We did get to meet Congressman George Whitesides, who's a long NSS. It was actually my first time meeting him, and he actually had some really wonky plant science questions for me afterwards. I was with Sean Mahoney, and he said, out of all the things I expected to hear out of George's mouth, I did not expect him to ask you about some wonky plant stuff. So it was really cool to see that like inquisitive nature there, but yeah, all the great things I've heard about George over the years, definitely rang true from that meeting. Looking at both the near term and long term of getting the space story right.
That's cool. So talk about, who'd you meet? What was the reception? How did they like it? And then really, let's start with, what was the agenda? What were the things you were trying to convey to these capital critters?
Yeah, so the main takeaways were an interesting one. One is that space has had an ROI, right? Is space IPOs are going to return $60 billion to space investors, giving commercial space companies 3 times NASA's annual procurement budget. That is a big number, right? So so a lot of these people are from the space ecosystem, right? They're all exiting out of these positions and stuff. It's a huge amount of capital that was generated within space that will likely want to flow back into space. So how to unlock that is rather interesting. And then the other ones were to declare really like timeline wise commercial space development as a national policy with a timeline attached to it, kind of long term. Making a lot of like really kind of in the weeds things like tax credits. These really, like you were talking about debt financing and stuff, some really specific elements in the tax code, which they had not done in previous years. But it's there's no budget with it, right? It's just changing the tax
Right.
code.
Just make a rule change, and it helps us and doesn't hurt anybody.
And and both sides were for it, because especially on the small business administration. Like if they were small business, they were for it. If they were go commercial and commercial space, they were for it too. So it had a lot of bipartisan support on that. And then the last two were a commercially led lunar base with the executive order was focused on, well, just saying lunar base. We were trying to add in the commercial, and there was a really interesting conversation around that still starting and moving forward. Of course, there's not any dollars assigned to any future lunar base. Lunar services is in the reauthorization, but not specifically how a base would work. And it's kind of that's still unclear how that would move forward. And then to fully fund the Space Force Office of Operational Energy, which has some alignment, some long-term alignment with space-based solar power. So
what's that one? I don't know any. Like, we'll go into each of the other three, but I don't know anything at all about this.
Yes.
Office of what?
So every branch of they have an Office of Operational Energy. So if it's the Army, the different divisions to maintain energy and stuff. And so what this was for the Space Force, is saying they have one, but we want to advance that. So and that was kind of a parking spot for some of these future things like space-based solar power potentially. And that was a budget ask there. That was actually the only budget ask. So different than other years, sometimes more numbers focused, quantitative focused, and it's all about where it is in the season. It's all kind of cooked up, in real time about less than a month before, so that we know kind of what's actionable. We're not just talking about things that can't be done or numbers that aren't going to change. So yeah, really great group. I've learned a lot through them. Hey, what's the mission? Let's go out and support it as best as I can. And yeah, always an interesting event, and it's a lot of space organizations. Probably many of the people here that are part of space organizations, they're a member organization under this Alliance for Space Development. So, you name it, there's 30 organizations a part of it, but mostly led by the Space Frontier Foundation and NSS.
How many people were on the trip with you? Trip is the wrong word.
Yeah, no, the mission.
Storm. The storm. How many people were in the storm with you?
Yeah, so the polls from the university level, so scattered across the country. There's at least 4 or 5 states represented from universities, so the college students, they all came in. That was a component of it, and then people that have been in this since before. NSS was even an organization back, like L5 type of folks.
Yeah.
So a really wide mix and a lot of cross pollination. It's such a cool experience to see and be a part of that, because there's all the meetings and running around all the legislative offices, but then there's also the happy hour and the networking that's equally as interesting and valuable.
I always loved it. I've been up there twice. It's a powerful experience. It really is. It's how I got to know my state's former governor. He was a congressman back then, and he was a closet space nerd. Who knew, right? Yeah, it's a good experience.
And you never know who you're going to run into too. You don't know this yet, so you'll have a good reaction to this. I actually met Palmer Luckey in the halls and had a brief conversation with him.
Okay.
So he's the founder of
Andrew.
Yep.
Palantir and
Palantir.
He's the was he high 20s, low 30s, super young, got billion-dollar contracts, mostly defense. Yeah, he's doing all right for himself.
So he was just low-key walking through the halls there, and someone spotted him, and I said, hey, I got a business card in hand. Seemed like a good moment. So
sure.
And I saw him on a podcast, and he's actually a pretty big space nerd too. So
I've heard that before.
Go ahead. So I had watched a podcast with him. I was like, he really gets the lunar environment, and is really interested in this space story. It's almost like sports, right? We don't know how this story is going to play out. And there's people that are into it and people that have looked backwards and are trying to look forwards and want to see where this all goes. And he was definitely one of them. So, and it was cool because he lit up immediately. I mean, he had his security guards around, very straight face. I was just like, just wanted to have a little geek chat about space, and he lit right up. So that was cool. Awesome. Kind of the fellow space nerd type of thing.
So you had a lot of these conversations, you've gotten connected with all these people, and you've been talking to, congressmen, and you've been doing all these things. You've been having all this fun this week. Now that that's done, where do you take all this? How do you kind of congeal this within yourself to help you with your own endeavors?
I like to work on the hard problems that most people aren't really looking at. The unbound problems is, okay, why can't we do this? Where are kind of the edges and kind of pushing in those? And even from a narrative standpoint is, where does this narrative kind of fall out? And okay, if we're trying to do this, why haven't we tried this before? So yeah, I'm both very narratively driven and very technically driven, and kind of what I think I can move the needle the most on. Because I want to see this story play out well. I'm like invested in this. I came into this as a space skeptic, and I want to see what we're doing. I remember watching a committee hearing, and one of the senators said, we're told a lot of space stories, and it's true, right? And there's a lot of space is very different, right? And Leo and lunar and Mars and stuff like that, they are probably inundated with space stories. What does the future look like with all this stuff? Why are we really doing all this stuff? And really kind of bounding some of those issues, just kind of first principles, like what are we doing, where and how, and what's possible, and what do we need to actually do that, is an area that I'm still trying to navigate. Increasingly interested in lunar operations.
I just wanted to throw this in because one of our viewers, Dallas Beanoff, had a question. He says, what was the March storm message? Was there a general theme that you all covered, or was it all over the place?
So to separate it out from some other advocacy groups like Planetary Society, it's focused on space development broadly. Is the science, we're not anti-science, and definitely had some items on here that was pro, astrophysics and helioscience, and so Planetary Society kind of did a great job on the science angle of it. Specifically, they're for development, so both for human exploration and commercial development of space. So that's been their long-standing platform. Those two in tandem, and what can unlock that? What can help move that forward? Long time, very specific advocates for space-based solar power, over the past few years. And it's not saying specifically how to do it, just how we can be doing things differently towards this direction. But very bold too. It's one of the only ones that talk about space settlement. As much as I think space settlement really lacks some definition, that's the declaration right in here. One of the first pages of going into the briefings is, we're here for it. Like, this is a thing that we're supporting. We're not anti-space settlement. We're not anti-humans going off into space and being unbound by Earth.
Love that. It's ironic to me that they're now pushing space-based solar power, because back in 2004 and 5, I individually was pulled aside and told, do not push space elevators, space stations, or space-based solar power, because it's wackadoo crazy and we don't want to get laughed out of the room. So now 25 years later, they're like, let's do big space. Let's do bases. Let's do space-based solar power. Let's do settlement. So yay. It's nice to see that kind of come full circle.
Well, it's amazing what money will do for you. Back then we had a 0%, revenue industry, and now it's $630 billion industry. And I was going to mention that before. You talked about there was like 60 billion in new revenue coming in. That was 3 times NASA's procurement budget. That should not surprise us at this point of development. In fact, it's going to that gap is going to widen significantly, and it should. One of the examples I give of this, where we're going someday, 25-year day, is New York Harbor. New York Harbor has every kind of ship going in and out of it every day. A handful of them are government ships, naval vessels, Coast Guard vessels, but everything else is either commercial or privately owned, something or other, and most of it is generating revenue.
Tax revenue and
economic activity.
Right.
And
that's the purpose of it. That's why there's a port authority specifically to control it. And in every other harbor in any major city, even smaller ones in this country or in the world. That's what they do.
And politically, it's interesting, because if you go on the timeline, right, between the left and the right, that's actually a critical thing. Does this ultimately raise the GDP, and what timeline, right? Mm-hmm. So does space, and now that's becoming a thing, is, okay, this is like a GDP thing, and it's like the rising tide floats all boats. Space is becoming that. So now it's not an anti-job and economic thing so much as it. So it's interesting seeing that narrative come out as well. That it's just kind of what timeline you look at it. It's like, is this a waste of money short term? Like, maybe not. Mm-hmm. Like, instead of investing it back domestically, maybe this is a great thing nationally to build out.
We always have to remind people, the money isn't going into space. It's not like we're just putting it in a suitcase and shipping it to the moon. The money is being spent down here on the ground. It is an economic engine that has multiplier effects. So,
and I do have a specific quote here. So the cash in hand of space investors and professionals after this year's expected IPOs is estimated between $50 and $80 billion. So that's cash in hand from space investors and professionals. That's just the cream coming off there.
Right.
So where that money goes will be, does that all flow back into AI? Does that flow back into AI in space? Who knows?
I talked about this last week and the week before, but God and Musk's accountants are the only ones who know, but there's going to be a lot of new space millionaires, in the same way that when Microsoft went public, when Amazon went public, like, those are both things that happened in the Pacific Northwest. And there were minted millionaires the day that stuff went public. There's going to be minted millionaires all across the country. Even low-level investors are going to make a lot of money all of a sudden. And those folks all like space, or they wouldn't be there. So where is that new money going to flow to? yeah, maybe there might be a few Lambos or something, but I think some of that money is gonna go right back into our industry, and it's gonna be a lot of new money, and that's not the only one. So
And
yeah,
that
I'm
raises the
excited
question:
about
what
it.
are they going to do with it when they get it?
Right?
And yeah, and some of the specific asks that we had there were how to make space more like other industries where, there's more than just equity based ways forward in this. So more of the debt, more of the tax credits, more of a variety of other approaches just to um, make it more standardized, is treat space like other industries here on earth with manufacturing credits and stuff, and specific um, uh, and incentives that are across other industries. So yeah, it will be interesting to see um, how that can all be unlocked.
Well, let's talk about the settlement piece because you said that was a specific ask. So describe what the ask was, and then your thoughts on it.
So it wasn't so the other ones that I listed were the specific asks, but just as part of like goals, like what is ASD, is they boldly state it, and I'm looking through literally the packet right here so I don't get it wrong. But to make the development and settlement of space a clearly defined part of why we send humans into space. That's their goals. That's one of the top 3 goals, and then we have the specific takeaways and asks and stuff. But yeah, that's I think as a metric, that gets thrown around a lot. To Musk, it looks like 1 million people on Mars or 1 million people on the moon. And, to the public, I think that narrative kind of gets lost a little bit. So, and then it gets polarized too, politically, between the parties. So, yeah, it's interesting to look at just what does space settlement really look like in Leo and in lunar and in Mars. So yeah.
We always talk about this show being that intersection between money and space, right? So fast forward in your mind, because you've been thinking about this for a while. What does a base look like? What does settlement mean to you? How much does it cost? How do you get the money? Because everybody's trying to figure that problem out.
Yeah.
Right. And who's going to go? How long are they going to stay? The
And what
whole,
are they going to eat? Let's bring
and
it
what are
back to
yeah,
you.
what are they going to eat? You get to help them with that.
It's interesting. So Transastra is interesting. Joe Searle, and I've had some conversations with him. Gravity can be useful. It's an unbound, especially with humans in the loop. It was interesting to see the artwork there where it's all robotic and it's asteroid, right? You got to remember the lunar surface has a lot, and this I haven't talked to Joel about, but the lunar surface has a lot of asteroid impacts, billions of years of them, and it's sitting there, same platinum group metals and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I call it system boundary problems. Is people have in their view like they're O'Neillians, right? Is they're just forget the delta V, let's do the asteroids and stuff like that, right? And to your point on the ROI, it's like, okay, but gravity can help you with these systems. It was interesting seeing that very 2D mock-up of what asteroid mining may look like, and he's brass tacks and first principles drill. So like but people do have their system boundary where they kind of discard some things. And I think gravity can be ultimately very useful, both for human space flight. Humans in the loop are going to be necessary. You're never going to have $1 trillion operation without humans in the loop. It's just too valuable, I think. So what's the cost of having humans in the loop if you're having an operation of that economic activity? And I think, there's no artificial gravity that was mocked up at that, and just gravity can be really useful, both for human health and for other processing and stuff. So on the lunar surface, you have that. So I think specifically, it does, right? The lunar surface for humans, long-term settlement, 1 million people, right? The amount of water, the amount of carbon, nitrogen, that kind of first principles look. There's things to do on the moon, but it may not be the best place to grow. Again, I'm the founder of Grow Mars. So I think, you need carbon, you need nitrogen. Mars is the place to really expand out organically. And, and more the traditional sense as we did here on Earth. But there's things to do on the moon, and how we do the moon, I think, right, especially from an ROI standpoint, I think matters.
What does the base look like? How do we grow that? And coming back to the congressmen and senators and the staffers that you met, what did they think about that? Like, at the end of the day, if they don't buy in, we just talked about how most of the money in the sector is defense money. If they don't buy into that, I don't know that we have very many paths. So what does the base look like? What did you present? And what was their reaction to it?
And there was no budget ask, right? So it was just kind of almost moving the narrative forward and saying, is this, and Isaacman hasn't called for commercial, the White House hasn't called for commercial, so this was kind of a new thing here. And again, the narrative around it's still going. My personal view, not the ASD view necessarily, is that the base can, and this there's probably some overlap here, but the base can drastically reduce the cost of doing science. On one side is, instead of doing all robotic, you can do upgrades, you can do servicing. If you want to do a lot of science on the lunar surface, this should be seen as a reduced, not pulling away from the science, but enabling the science. So if you have a lunar base, you can do more science, more economic. I mean, think about the next NASA center being on the moon. Wouldn't that be great?
I love that.
Have the next NASA center be on the moon. I think that would be a great thing to do, and it would be a cost-effective thing to do as well. But herein lies the problem. And, I think NASA hasn't had any real concrete plans to do this stuff going forward, or like looking backwards. And I think that's because a lot of the science is in a lot of different places. NASA wants to go to a lot of different places and do a lot of different things. So a lunar base kind of ties them to somewhere. And narratively, right? It's like, okay, you got some people sitting around and looking at walls, maybe doing an EVA and stuff like that. I think you got to go to the moon to do, not just be in one location doing one kind of limited activity, or even necessarily mining, water ice and stuff. I think that demand signal has to be there from an ROI standpoint. And I think that story has still to be written.
Mm-hmm. Well, you talked about what people are doing, what people are going to do in this little base, when there's you're not moving rocks around, or you're doing something else. And what do you do with inside? It doesn't want to get boring. I think one thing we could do, I just thought about this, is that we could figure out how you would play darts in 1/6 gravity. You may need to move the hockey line about 9 more feet, whatever it takes, and you have to have a little bit more of an arc, when you toss it, and see where that goes.
And I think
a pool table is too heavy to ship, but a dartboard we might be able to do.
And to the point of, there's no microgravity there, right? So microgravity is a huge national lab component there. What are we really doing scientifically on the lunar surface from a basic science standpoint in that partial gravity environment that can be, I think even that, I haven't heard a single, this is really good to do under lunar gravity, whether it's growing organs or manufacturing XYZ is, I think we're at like step 0 for that from a commercial standpoint.
Well, I have some intuition about that. Nanotech. I think nanotech is going to thrive in a low G environment, not 0 G, but if anything that my debacle with nanotech taught me is that atoms are finicky, and just the slightest change in, Coriolis forces or wind or where you are in an atom can fall to the left or to the right, and it's a thing. And so I think if you can lower the gravity, I think you've got more control of the nanotech development.
Well,
but that's just intuition. We don't know that. That's not science. That's
there's that. But then for almost 25 years now, maybe exactly 25 years, I take it back, we have been pining for various degrees of partial gravity experimental studies on mammalian physiology. be it mice or men. And so
Yep.
this is the time when maybe we'll finally start getting that done.
It's easier to operate, in some sense, everything doesn't have to be microgravity derived. So a lot of those, I think that's a really good point, is on the life in space side of things, is can life develop relatively normally under partial G, right? Because that's applicable to artificial gravity, to Mars gravity. Those are a lot easier things to run when you're not in microgravity. Actually, microgravity is like a compounding factor there.
Well, when you get a chance, look up something called the Mars Gravity Biosatellite. That was developed. That was a joint research venture from the Mars Society and some guys at MIT about 25 years ago. And they came up with kind of they just did a kind of an engineering study to see what they could come up with whatever legacy equipment we had lying around, like an old Apollo era space capsule or something. What could you do with it?
Tom, they still talk about that. I was at the Mars Society conference 2 years ago up here in University of Washington. UW was a part of that mission. They still talk about that thing with the kind of like, give me my damn satellite, right? Like let's do that test. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're down to our last 4 minutes here. Pull out your crystal ball, imagine the future. What does 5 years look like, and what does 25 years look like?
So I'll start at 25 years and I'll spin off of where we just were. I think we're going to try to have the first baby on the moon in 25 years. To answer that question, it's close enough. I don't think maybe we'll do it on Mars because that's a long journey if something goes wrong. But if you really look at the ethics of it, I mean, people give birth in very remote locations, right? Think of uncontacted tribes, right? We don't disallow them to reproduce, totally unplugged from modern society.
Good luck.
The ethics around control. So in 25 years, I hope we have an answer to that question. I think what a thing if everything goes right. And the studies so far have not shown that everything goes wrong, that the chance is zero. Right now, the chance is not zero of having under partial gravity a normal gestation and stuff, to my knowledge. So yeah, I think that's I think something we can look forward to way more than, war on the moon or something like that, is a birth on the moon. I'd rather a birth on the moon than war on the moon.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
I've been saying for years now that until we have the first kid, we're just camping. When we have a kid, that's the beginning of settlement. Until that, it's just camping.
That's absolutely right.
And in 5 years, I think we're somewhere in the middle there. I think 5 years, maybe we'll know, what worries me most about lunar exploration is just the lineup of billions to what ROI. And I'm trying to dig at.
Oh, you're killing me, Daniel.
Yeah, well, it happened to me just a minute ago, too.
I know. You guys were both having sync issues. All right. Well, Daniel Tompkins, love having you, but you just glitched out. All right. You got 1 minute. Tell us fast.
Okay. So I'm not sure where I cut off, but in 5 years, so hopefully the billions, the lineup of billions is right now, everyone thinks we have to do it. It's very, laid out chronologically. We got to do all this and this timeline and this roadmap to get to this thing of staying in space or doing the moon and stuff. And my concern is just, when do we get to an ROI activity that makes this worth really going and staying? So hopefully in the next 5 years, that's solved versus abandoned.
Yeah. That's good. That's very good. Okay. Dr. Daniel Tompkins, Grow Mars, and a great, great, great space advocate, and very, very fiery. And it's good to have you. It's good to see you do the work that you do. And we're going to have you back again real soon.
Grow Mars and probably do the moon. Maybe that's the new slogan.
Grow Mars, do the moon. Do the moon. You can do you can do the moon. Yeah, I love it. Okay. Thanks so much. See you again soon.
Stick around after the show.
Yep. Well, as I said before, Monday is going to be a repeat because I start doing the SAT Show conference. But next Thursday, I will be kind of a host and a guest, reporting on all the interesting things I saw and the people that I met there, and all the things that we did to help satellite communications and the future of humanity. And I hope that will be a very good show, and I hope you'll join us there for it. And so on that note, for Michael Lane and Sean Key from the news desk at the Center for Space Commerce and Finance, I remain Thomas Andrew Olson. Keep watching the skies.